Alright everyone, and welcome back. You all seem to enjoy these more casual build breakdowns that I've been doing recently, and so today I wanted to go through one of the strongest ones that I've been using on my Warlock recently. It is one of them prismatic builds that, to be honest, don't 100% know what's going on all the time, and that seems to be the way with prismatic builds, to be honest. If something's happening, then yeah, I mean, it's happening basically, and sometimes it just does its thing. That is basically just how crazy prismatic is, in my opinion. There is a ton of stuff to break down and go through. I'm going to try and explain what I'm aiming for in terms of this build, what I'm using it for, and the gameplay cycle essentially as to what I am doing at any given moment to try and get this thing to work and just get some synergy going so that we're getting abilities back, we're getting bonus damage on all of his weapons, and essentially this is the build that I have used a ton this week to farm the Grandmaster Nightfall. Now, some of the footage in the gameplay that you'll be seeing is basically from a run where I was essentially at -40, nearly -50 compared to the enemies within the Grandmaster Nightfall, and as you can see, this build just absolutely stood up to that test, and basically in that fire team environment just helped to destroy everything. We've got everything set up to deal with literally every single champion that you can think of, whether that's barrier champions, unstoppable champions, or overload champions, and there's not just one option to deal with them. Neither. There is a ton of options from either our weapons or our abilities, and we even have some things that we can substitute in and out on the fly, even within the build itself, in terms of ability usage and what we want him to achieve at any given moment. Now, to be honest, this build does all start with the exotic sidearm, the Buried Bloodline, and we did a massive breakdown on this one recently, so if you want to know the full ins and outs of this exotic sidearm, then check the video down below, linked in the description, and then jump back to this one because I'm not going to do a whole massive breakdown on this thing again. Just to sum it up, it is basically immense. You can get it from the Warlord's Ruin dungeon. It is a random drop at the end of it, and yes, it did take me over 6 months to get it, so if you're still struggling to get this thing, then it is absolutely worth it. And if you're like me, where you see things in game where you go, that looks awesome, I want to use it, how do I get that thing, then Buried Bloodline, absolutely worth running and painstakingly running that final boss in the Warlord's Ruin dungeon, because this thing is just absolutely nuts for a ton of builds. It was insane for void builds last season, and now it is also absolutely pretty much a quintessential must-have weapon for prismatic builds. Now, Buried Bloodline basically does give you Devour on rapid multiple final blows with this weapon, and then if you do manage to get the Catalyst, which is also completed from literally a mini puzzle within the dungeon, then you will also weaken targets when you have Devour active. Now, obviously on a Warlock there's a few ways that you can get Devour active, but essentially we're using the Buried Bloodline instead of using the Feed the Void aspect, and there is a number of reasons for that. It just basically opens up the whole subclass for us to use in terms of prismatic. By not using the Feed the Void aspect, we do essentially get one more fragment to use, especially with the ones that I've chosen in the aspects breakdown, and with Devour we're essentially going to get unlimited grenade abilities, so we want to lean into getting them grenades back as often as possible, and the one that I've been using in this build is the Fredling grenade. Now, there's a few reasons for that which we're going to break down in a moment, but the Fredling grenade I think is just one of the more versatile grenades that you have on the Warlock. It has that decent single target damage, but because you're also spawning 3 Fredlings, you can also throw it and it'll go and track nearby enemies, so you do have a larger area effect with this Fredling grenade, and although you don't get the boosted damage that you would get on your Strand builds with the Thread of Evolution, they do still do bits, and they will take out trash ads and do decent damage to higher target enemies. But like I say, we're all basing this build around getting our grenades back with that Devour, and we're doubling down on the grenade ability with the Bleak Watcher Stasis Turret. You can either use your grenade ability by throwing it to get the Fredling grenade going, or you can use it to get the Bleak Watcher and the Stasis turrets. Now, to be honest, in certain situations you will have that much uptime with these things that you can get maybe 2 free Bleak Watchers going, and then automatically as well get a few Threadling Grenades going as well. The uptime of this thing and the grenade uptime in this build is absolutely insane. So you've got the wombo combo of the 2 darkness abilities, which again leans into getting that transcendence ability uptime going. Because we're going for that grenade ability uptime with Devour, obviously we're going to get about 20% grenade ability energy on final blows whilst Devour is active, and that's going to be really easy to achieve with any of your weapons, with that Buried Bloodlines or with any of your ability kills from your grenades. Now, the main thing that I've been using on this build, and it's not 100% necessary, you can technically throw in a few other exotics if you want. I've been farming for the Warlock exotic bond. Now if somebody wants to pronounce it then they can try, but basically the one that I've been using is the Spirit of Osmiomancy. Now this thing is absolutely nuts on Prismatic. Is basically your grenades will recharge quicker on hits. Now this is obviously based around the Osmiomancy gloves, which give the cold snap grenades better tracking and also gives you a bonus grenade charge. We don't get all that with this exotic class item, but it does mean that we don't have to use the cold snap grenades, because essentially you are going to get up to 12% grenade energy back on hits with your grenade of choice, and that does also work with the Bleak Watcher turret, and it does work with the Threadling grenade. So on top of Devour, you're going to be getting tons of grenade ability uptime with the Threadling grenade or with your Bleak Watcher using the Spirit of Osmiomancy, and that is just going to allow you to basically shut down the battlefield, control everything, and just deal with what's in front of you, and ultimately leans back into getting that maximum transcendence ability uptime, which basically is the icing on top of the cake in this build, especially if you wanted to use that freezing singularity prismatic grenade, which is going to slow enemies and it's also going to suppress them, which is absolutely perfect for dealing with overload champions, dealing with unstoppable champions, and it can also deal with them barrier champions as well, like I say, on top of the weapon synergy that we've also got through the artifact and whatnot this season. Now in terms of making this build even more insane, then obviously like I say, we're going through that grenade ability uptime, and as we're going to have tons of grenades, we can basically lean in on the Facet of Bravery, which is going to allow any grenade final blow to give your void weapons volatile rounds, and it's going to allow you to get unraveling rounds on melee final blows. Now we're not technically leaning into the melee side of this build, but we do want volatile rounds on our void weapons. Obviously with the Buried Bloodlines being void, then we're going to be able to basically get Devour on tap, we're going to get volatile rounds on tap, and we're also going to weaken everything and just dish out a ton of damage. And then if you're using something like your void weapon surges on your legs, then you're going to get a 22% damage boost, and this just makes the Buried Bloodlines absolutely insane. And then tied in with the Unstoppable Sidearm mod, then you've got tons going for it in a ton of content, whether that's Grandmaster Nightfalls or Legend Lost Sectors or whatever they're called at the minute, Expert Lost Sectors. It really is going to do bits for you. In terms of getting Transcendence energy, then with this build we've got a few things going. We've got the Chain Lightning, which is a light subclass ability, which is going to give you that light subclass energy for your Transcendence. We've also got the Phoenix Dive, which I do like using because of the shorter base cooldown, and we're going to lean that one into using the Helion to get that solar blob thing going, and that solar buddy, which is going to scorch targets and ultimately ignite them, and that is going to give you tons of Transcendence energy, and combined with the darkness side from the grenades, and that all leans back into the Facet of Devotion, because defeating targets afflicted with stasis or strand debuffs grants bonus light Transcendence energy. Now with this one we've only really got the stasis ability going, but if you've got one of them stasis turrets and you're defeating enemies that are slowed, then you will see, and you've probably seen some of the gameplay, that meter just fills up rapidly. Like honestly, it is absolutely insane how quickly that thing builds up. But likewise on the other side of it, we've got the Facet of Sacrifice, and we're going to build up that Darkness Transcendence energy. You're going to get bonus Transcendence Energy if we're defeating enemies with Arc, Solar or Void buff ability Final Blows. So because we're going to be able to get Radiant from either the Facet of Dawn or through the artifact this season with the mod that makes you Radiant on picking up an Orb of Power, then essentially we're going to rapidly recharge both of that Light and Dark Transcendence Energy. It's going to give you that 5% extra damage bonus to your weapons, and it's also going to give you a massive damage reduction to incoming damage, and it's just something that once you've built it up you just need to pop it at all times. And this Prismatic Warlock build is absolutely insane for just the uptime of that insane ability. Now I know that the Facet of Hope isn't working as intended at the minute, but I've got it chucked in there because it's going to give you the chance to get that class ability energy back quicker, and it's going to allow you to basically double down on getting them Helion Solar Buddies going, as it's going to give you your class ability energy back as long as you have an elemental buff. So whether you've got Devour, Radiant or even Amplified, which we can get through the Chain Lightning melee ability if we defeat multiple targets with it, then this thing just has everything. I mean, we've got literally nearly every single subclass buff or debuff going. I think the only one that we're technically missing out on is probably Woven Mail, and with the health regen that Devour offers and just the damage reduction that we're getting from either Transcendence or from the Facet of Protection, then I don't really think we need Woven Mail, and Restoration is basically redundant because of that health regen that we're getting from Devour. Now in terms of your super that you want to chuck in on this build, then I don't think you can go far wrong with the Song of Flame. Now we're not technically leaning in on getting our supers back as quickly as possible. I do have the Ashes to Assets mod because we have got that leaning into our grenade ability uptime, so you're going to get bonus super energy on grenade final blows. And the Song of Flame, I mean, it's just absolutely cracks at the minute this season. I mean, once you pop it, it's going to give you that nice damage reduction. You're going to get that Solar Wisp grenade ability which tracks for absolute days, scorches targets, and you're also going to get bonus scorching ability to your solar and kinetic weapons. So if you're using a kinetic weapon like I've been using with the Smite of Moraine from the King's Fall raid, then that's going to allow you to scorch enemies as well as deal with barrier champions because of the fact that you are radiant. And this thing is just absolutely insane. But I mean, alternatively, if you want to maybe change that up and use something like the Nova Bomb, that thing is doing absolutely huge damage at the minute. Between Song of Flame, Nova Bomb, then I don't think you can go far wrong with your Prismatic supers of choice. Now in terms of other mods and stuff that we've got set up, then I think obviously you want a high resilience stat as standard. That is kind of a gimme on any given build at the minute. Recovery high because we're a warlock, then that's going to give you your class ability back really quickly. And then bonus discipline, I mean, that's just going to give you quicker grenade ability recharge, and then on top of Devour and everything else that we've got going on here, then you're going to have grenades back super quick. For the rest of the mods that we've got picked, then obviously I think you're going to want to use a Void Cipher mod. That's going to give you the ability to create Orbs of Power on rapid final blows with your exotic sidearm, and because of the nature of these rocket assisted frame sidearms and the ammo economy of them, then you're going to be able to use that basically as a primary ammo weapon at this point. Also then I would also chuck on the Firepower mod. That's also going to give you the ability to create Orbs of Power on grenade final blows, and causing damage with a grenade will also reduce your melee cooldown, so we can lean back into getting that arc melee ability going. In terms of chest armor, you want to put your void or your solar arc, you know, whatever damage resist mods you have got going for whatever activity you've got. We've already spoken about the void weapon surges, and then on your class item, then I think bomber is just an excellent well-rounded choice. That's going to reduce your grenade cooldown when using your class ability, and like I say, tied in with that Facet of Hope. Once that thing's working, then you're going to have maximum uptime of that Phoenix Dive class ability, which is going to cure you and nearby allies, as well as activating that Helion Solar Buddy. And there's just a ton of things going on. Like I said, this build is really fluid. The gameplay loop is whether you want to use your freezing stasis Bleak Watcher turrets or whether you want to use your Threadling grenades to keep the volatile rounds going. It's all about getting that Devour. It's all about freezing everything, building into getting that Transcendence ability, and if you're using it with all of your abilities at any given time, then you're going to shut everything down. And in terms of weapons, then just choose what you want for your kinetic weapon or your heavy weapon. I've got the Slammer, which has got Eager Edge and Cold Steel. I think that's excellent for dealing with Overlord champions this season in terms of just how Overlord champions rush you. Switch to Eager Edge, Cold Steel, spin to win on that thing, and you shut down and basically destroyed the Overlord champion instantly. In terms of the rest of the mods, then I think Transference is one of the best ones that you can get. You're going to get an increased grenade and melee damage whilst Transcendent, which is just absolutely perfect. And then Weapon Final Blows whilst Transcendent will refund light and dark energy after Transcendence Edge. So if you're not leaning in fully on your ability uptime, then essentially you're going to be able to just maximize the uptime of Transcendence if you're using any of your weapons. You can use the Expanding Abyss as well, which is going to be absolutely perfect with that Buried Bloodline. It's going to deal increased weaken damage. I think that boosts it up to a 25% weaken from a 15% weaken, so it's absolutely massive. And you can also use the Void Hegemony to get a Void Overshield when defeating weakened targets, and we can also, like I say, use the Radiant Orbs mods to get Radiant when picking up an Orb of Power with your Prismatic subclass. In terms of everything else, obviously Overlord Sword I think is the way to go, and then obviously just your anti-champion mods of choice basically will round out that build. So I just really wanted to break this one down. I really wanted to go into a little bit more of a casual build breakdown. You guys all seem to enjoy them. I kind of just want to go through my thoughts and how I'm setting it up, what I'm aiming for, and I hope that this video helped make sense of it, because like I say, there's a ton of stuff going on with Prismatic and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but you've got to just go with the flow essentially, see what you're feeling, and you've got a choice, an absolute ton of choice in terms of your abilities and stuff with this thing. So thank you very much for watching. Not going to drag it out any longer. I appreciate everybody so much, and if you want to check out the Buried Bloodlines video, then I'll link it here. But otherwise, have a great day. Thank you very much.